The dim light of the early morning sun filtered through the leaves of the maple tree outside my window, casting intricate patterns on my bedroom wall. I lay in bed, cocooned in a quilt made from the scraps of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. Outside, the world pressed on with its usual morning bustle, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I could hear the faint sounds of neighbors starting their day, the rhythmic thud of a newspaper hitting the porch, the distant bark of a dog, and the melodic trill of birds. But none of it penetrated the haze of my tangled thoughts as I stared at the ceiling, recalling the past few years like a movie I could not pause. Another day, another disappointment, I muttered to myself, the bitterness lingering on my tongue like old coffee. Since the incident, I had grown accustomed to wrestling with my emotions, each day slipping further into a chasm of unresolved conflict. Anguish clashed with resolve, but this morning felt different. A small spark flickered within me, a hint of energy that fought against the fatigue I had worked so hard to cultivate. It whispered to me that today might be the day I took the first steps toward the retribution I had been scheming for months. I rose from the bed, my feet brushing against the cool hardwood floor, sending a shiver up my spine. As I shuffled toward the kitchen, the familiar scent of stale breakfast clung to the air, reminding me of the countless mornings spent alone. I had once shared this space with my sister Lily until everything unraveled. My hands trembled slightly as I poured myself a cup of coffee, the rich aroma filling my senses. It was a ritual that brought me comfort even amid the chaos swirling in my mind. Lily, with her boundless enthusiasm and reckless spirit, had been the bright spark in our family, and I often found myself wondering how I let her light dim so completely. I thought about our last conversation, replaying it over and over in my head. It was filled with laughter one moment and silence the next. Her eyes had pleaded with me to help her escape a situation she felt trapped in. I had turned away, busy with my own worries, convinced that my world centered on my struggles while hers was just an afterthought. And before I knew it, it was too late. The shrill ring of my phone pulled me away from my memories. I glanced at the screen, my heart racing at the sight of the name. Ezra, I answered, bracing for the onslaught of reality he often brought with him. Mira, you there? His voice crackled through the line, urgent and slightly out of breath. Yeah, I'm here. What's up? I replied, trying to sound nonchalant despite my racing pulse. I found something, he said, his tone dropping an octave, about what happened to Lily. Ezra, I have been through this before. You always say that, and I end up feeling like a fool. My pulse pounded in my ears like a war drum. This time I mean it. I know who was involved, Myra. I know who did this. My breath caught in my throat, a mix of hope and dread colliding violently within me. My hands gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles turning white. Who was it? Meet me at the old diner in an hour. I will tell you everything. The line went dead before I could respond. I stood there, the phone buzzing quietly in my palm, the weight of immense urgency draping over me like a heavy fog. The old diner, it felt like a ghost of my childhood, a place where Lily and I had shared greasy fries and driven our parents mad with our laughter. I swallowed hard, adrenaline fueling the flames of my determination. I had always been the cautious one, the sister who played it safe, while Lily ventured out into the unknown. But now, with everything at stake, I felt like I was finally ready to embrace the recklessness I had shunned for so long. I took a deep breath, inhaling the aromatic notes of coffee, letting it ignite the battle that ended with Lily's tragic fall. As I punched the numbers into my phone to get directions, visions of what had transpired twisted in my mind, painfully vivid. The faces of those who had wronged her swam before me, their smirks etched into my memory like a tattoo I could never scrub clean. 3 years, I murmured under my breath, bitterness lacing my words. 3 years searching for justice, and now it's time I shook the dust off these old shoes and kicked some serious ass. I threw on my favorite leather jacket, the one that felt like armor, added a touch of mascara to my eyes, a weak attempt to remind myself of the woman I used to be, self-assured and fiercely unyielding. As I locked the door behind me, the sound felt final, like sealing away my old self. The maple leaves danced lightly in the breeze, but I had no time for beauty today. Revenge had become my driving force, igniting within me a passion that terrified and exhilarated me all at once. I climbed into my car, the engine roaring to life, drowning out my tangled thoughts. As I pulled away from the familiar confines of my street, I could feel the wheels of fate turning beneath me, setting me on a collision course with my past. And as I drove, I envisioned the confrontation, felt the promise of justice settling in my chest like the first glimpse of dawn. Arriving at the diner, I scanned the parking lot, finally spotting Ezra leaning against the faded neon sign that flickered half-heartedly. He looked nervous, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his jacket as he scanned the surroundings. I stepped out of the car and made my way toward him, my heart pounding in sync with each footfall. Myra, you made it, he began, but I didn't wait for him to finish. Tell me what you know, Ezra. I don't have time for small talk. Okay, I'm sorry, he said, rubbing the back of his neck. I thought we might want privacy, you know. I rolled my eyes and grabbed his arm, leading him toward the back of the diner where a weathered picnic table lay half hidden by overgrown bushes. Just spit it out. Who hurt her? Ezra took a deep breath, his gaze dropping to the ground. It's Adam. I overheard him talking with some guys. They were discussing how they set her up. They wanted to scare her away from the bar and scare her, I interrupted, fury bubbling up inside me. That's all. That's what they call scaring someone. Mira, just listen, things got out of control. He hesitated, stepping back slightly as if my words had physically struck him. She was supposed to just back down, but they ended up pushing her too far. I felt something crack inside me, fissures of self-control splintering as rage flooded my heart. Push her too far, she's gone, Ezra. You don't just push someone too far, you either have respect for life or you lose your chance to own your actions. What else do you know? His eyes widened in shock and he stammered out, they are part of a gang that runs the bar scene in this area. They thought they could intimidate her, that she would crawl back to them without putting up a fight. And did she fight? I demanded, my voice icy. She did, but it was too late. Myra, I promise, I am going to help you get back at them. I know how they operate, but we must be smart about this. We cannot rush in blindly or we will just get ourselves hurt. I inhaled sharply, anger fueling my resolve. Then tell me how. I cannot walk away from this again. I can't leave it be as if she never mattered. For the first time since I entered that diner, the flicker of hope ignited once more, combining with my desire for vengeance. At that moment, I understood that the fire inside me could become a roaring blaze if I stoked it just right. If you want to help me, then we need a plan, one they will never see coming. Ezra nodded, determination finding its way into his expression. We'll gather information, we'll figure out their routines, their weaknesses, we will make sure they regret what they did. I felt the smirk tugging at my lips, savoring the taste of this newfound conviction. Get ready, Ezra, it is time to finish what they started. As we began laying out our plan, I stared out at the quiet street, the sun shining down with a deceptive warmth as if the world was still unaware of the reckoning approaching the shadows of Maplewood. I felt a jolt of exhilaration shoot through me. I was ready to claim the justice Lily deserved. The weight of darkness that had settled over my life was lifting, giving way to a fierce light, and I could almost hear Lily's voice cheering me on. This was only the beginning, but I would make sure it was a beginning they would never forget. I woke up the next morning feeling a strange mixture of dread and excitement coiling in my stomach. The sun was already spilling its golden light through the sheer curtains in my small bedroom, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I rolled over and stared at the ceiling as thoughts raced through my mind. Today was the day I would confront Rachel. The very name sent a jolt through my veins, igniting that familiar fire within me. How could she have thought she could betray me and get away with it? I swung my legs off the bed and rubbed the sleep from my eyes, the cool wooden floor sending shivers up my spine. After a quick shower, I stood in front of the mirror, my heart pounding as I examined myself. My long, dark hair was still damp and hung in loose waves around my shoulders. I pulled on my favorite maroon blouse, the one that hugged my figure just right, and slipped into a pair of fitted black jeans. I wanted to look confident, powerful. I glanced at my reflection, and my bright hazel eyes reflected a determination that I had never known before. Today is the day, Myra, I whispered to myself, a small smile creeping onto my lips. I made my way to the small diner just a few blocks from my apartment, where Rachel had agreed to meet me. The smell of sizzling bacon and freshly brewed coffee wafted through the air as I pushed open the front door, the bell jingling like a warning. It was a typical cozy morning at Joe's diner. The chatter of customers blended with the clinking of silverware on plates. I spotted Rachel sitting in a booth towards the back, her bright red hair a striking contrast to the dark wooden booth. She looked nervous, twisting a strand of hair around her finger and glancing around the room as though searching for an escape. Taking a deep breath, I approached the booth, my heart racing in tune with each step. Rachel, I said, slipping into the seat across from her. The forced friendliness in my voice was almost nauseating. Myra, she replied, her eyes widening as she took in my presence. Thanks for coming. Of course, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I figured we needed to talk. About, she trailed off, looking like a deer caught in the headlights. About what you did, I said, my voice sharp. You think I did know? How could you do this to me? Her face drained of color and I could see panic flickering behind her eyes. Look, I didn't meant to, it just happened, she stammered, her hands fidgeting on the table. Oh, so you just happened to sleep with my boyfriend? I shot back, feeling anger flood my voice, boiling just beneath the surface. You think I'm just going to let that slide? Where's the accountability, Rachel? I never wanted to hurt you, she pleaded, her voice rising with desperation. It was a mistake. I didn't know things were that serious between you and Tyler. Not serious, I scoffed, leaning in closer, the smell of burnt toast in the air mixing with the scent of burnt bridges between us. You think you can just pretend it didn't happen? You don't get to decide how serious we were. You broke my trust, my heart. Her lips quivered, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy, but it was gone as quickly as it had come. Myra, I am so sorry, she said, tears welling in her eyes. I didn't realize how much you meant to him. I laughed bitterly. What's your excuse? That you were clueless, pretty selfish if you ask me. Myra, please, I never meant for it to go this far, she said. I thought it was just a fling. I leaned back in my seat, crossing my arms. Just a fling, you were the one who orchestrated it. You think you can play dumb and expect me to believe that? The look on her face told me she wasn't buying her own excuses anymore. I know I messed up. I thought he was just a guy like anyone else, but I didn't realize he was going to tread on your heart like this, she murmured, my chest tightened. And how exactly do you think I'm supposed to deal with this? I whispered, my voice dropping low. What do I get in return for my trust, my heart, my dignity? No one can take away your dignity except you, she said softly, her gaze matting the table. I don't know how to make this right. Can't we just start over? I felt the crack in my heart widen, but I wasn't about to let it show. Start over after you've already stomped all over my feelings. I don't think you grasp the weight of your actions. I know, she said, voice taut, and I'm willing to pay for it. Please, Myra, let me prove to you that I can be a better person. By what? Asking for forgiveness with a heartfelt letter? I asked sarcastically. You think I want words, I want actions, I want you to feel what I felt. But what does that even mean? She said, throwing her hands up in frustration. Should I put a do not disturb sign on my heart forever? I can't undo the past. Could you try? I shot back, leaning in towards her. I mean, if you really care, you made your bed, Rachel, now you lie in it. Rachel's shoulders slumped as she stared at her trembling fingers. She looked defeated. I can't believe I'm sitting across from someone I hurt so deeply. I never wanted to be the villain in your story. I watched as she fought with her emotions, tears now spilling down her cheeks, but I felt no pity for her. You chose to be the villain the moment you decided to betray me, I said coldly. The waitress arrived just then, breaking the tense silence with a plate of pancakes in front of me and a steaming cup of coffee in front of Rachel. I offered the waitress a curt smile, wishing she would hurry along. What do you want from me? Rachel finally asked, soft and defeated. Honestly, I said, savoring the power I felt in my words. I want you to understand the depth of your betrayal, Rachel. I want you to feel it. I want you to know that no matter how you try to justify your actions, there is no way to erase the pain you have caused. Rachel nodded, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. I can't change what I've done. I won't make excuses, but please let me show you just how sorry I am. I gazed into her eyes, searching for sincerity, and yet all I saw was panic and regret. Show me, and how the hell are you going to do that? I'll expose the truth to everyone, she said, determination now seeping into her voice. I will tell them what I did. Tyler doesn't deserve to be let off the hook. We can do it together. A cruel smile crept onto my lips at the thought. I was ready to pull the rug out from under him. And what makes you think I would trust you again? I asked, relishing the surprise that flickered across her face. Because this is your chance to serve justice not just for you but for everyone else he has hurt. She might have thought she was giving me power, but in reality I was already months ahead of her. I had a plan. You want me near you again after you've hurt me, after everything? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Trust me, Rachel said, speaking slowly, each word dripping with remorse. I can convince people. I can help you get your revenge. I considered her words carefully. Revenge was a dangerous game, one I had not thought too far into, but perhaps Rachel could be a useful pawn. My heart raced at the thought of getting back at Tyler and reclaiming my sense of self. Fine, I said finally, a grin creeping onto my face. But remember, if you betray me again, the consequences will be dire. Absolutely, she nodded, relief flooding her features. You have my word. We shook hands, sealing the deal. I was still seething with anger inside, but now I had a partner in my revenge. I would show Tyler and Rachel what happens when you betray someone who once considered you a friend. As I took a sip of the coffee, I could taste the bittersweet thrill of vengeance unfurling inside me, a rich blend of dark roast and dark intent. The stakes had never been higher, and the game was just beginning. The sun barely peeked over the horizon, casting a pale orange glow through the thin curtains of my bedroom window. I rubbed my eyes and stretched out in bed, the warmth of the blankets cocooning me. There was something comforting about the early morning stillness, but comfort was no longer part of my life. I glanced at the clock on my nightstand and groaned. It was already 7 in the morning. I had work at the cafe today, and I still hadn't prepared for the meeting with Sophie. I felt a surge of anxiety prickling at the back of my mind like static electricity. Today was the day I would finally confront her, and there was no turning back. I swung my legs off the bed and let the cold wooden floor greet my bare feet. As I moved through my morning routine, the adrenaline from last night's encounter between me and the realization of my plan buzzed beneath my skin. I couldn't help but replay the conversation I had with myself in the mirror earlier, the reflection staring back at me still so unsure. This is it, Myra. You bury the past today, I whispered, my voice shaky. I could almost hear Sophie's condescending laughter, a sound I had forced myself to forget but which echoed in my mind like a haunting melody. Don't forget how she made you feel, I reminded myself, scrunching my hands into fists. My memories, vivid and sharp, surged back, the lies, the betrayal, the way she had left me exposed, vulnerable, while she thrived in my absence. I fought against the wave of anger that crashed in my chest, igniting my resolve like a match striking against the rough surface of my emotions. I finished getting dressed, donning my favorite faded jeans and a loose white shirt to counter the nervous butterflies that flittered around in my stomach. As I stepped outside, the crisp autumn air greeted me, filling my lungs with freshness that temporarily dulled the dread. The leaves were changing colors, vibrant oranges and yellows fluttered to the ground like confetti, heralding the change in seasons. I walked to the cafe, the familiar route filled with memories of past conversations with friends I had tried to keep from crumbling. Each step felt heavier, yet somehow exhilarating. Today I would claim what was rightfully mine, closure, honesty, the power over my narrative. At the cafe, the scent of freshly brewed coffee wafted in the air, mingling with the rich aroma of cinnamon scones that the baker had prepared early this morning. The sound of the espresso machine sputtering and hissing was oddly soothing as I punched in my order. "One black coffee," I said, plastering a smile on my face, even though my heart raced in anticipation of what awaited later. "Just the way you like it, Myra," Jason, my coworker, said, sliding the steaming cup my way. His green eyes sparkled with mischief. "You look like you're about to take on the world. What's going on?" I took a sip of my coffee, allowing the warmth to spread through me. "Just gearing up for a big meeting later. You know how it is," I replied, trying to keep my tone casual, but my voice shook ever so slightly. Jason raised an eyebrow, leaning closer. "A meeting with who? I hope it is not someone from your past." There was a moment of silence, and I could sense the judgment in his eyes. "It's just there is something I need to clarify with someone," I said, wording it carefully, still not ready to lay bare the whole story. "It is nothing serious." His expression softened, calling in playful comfort. "You know I am always here if you need to talk. Whatever it is, you've got this. Remember that." I nodded appreciatively, although all I could think about was how I might shatter that confidence when I faced Sophie. As the minutes fell away, the cafe filled with the familiar sounds of chatter and laughter. Each ringing bell that signaled a new customer felt like a countdown clock for me. I filled plates with breakfast orders and topped off coffee mugs, keeping busy to avoid dwelling on the storm brewing inside. Every glance at the door made my heart race. If Sophie walked in, would I be able to stand my ground? Around noon, just as the lunch rush began to ease, I saw her. Sophie strolled in with a swagger I remembered all too well, a vision of confidence wrapped in crisp designer clothes. Her long hair fell perfectly over her shoulders, and she scanned the cafe like she owned the place, which she probably thought she did. Panic surged through my veins and gripped me tightly. Before I could think twice, Jason appeared beside me. "There she is, the infamous Sophie," he whispered, a note of curiosity in his voice. "Are you going to talk to her?" "She has no idea I am here," I replied, my voice low. My pulse quickened even further. "I need a moment." I stormed away from the counter, retreating to the cramped supply room at the back, breathing heavily and digging my nails into my palms. I leaned against the shelves, feeling shelves full of syrup bottles and coffee grounds, and I closed my eyes tight. Could I do this? Could I really go confront her? A million thoughts raced through my head like mice trapped in a maze. I couldn't turn back. I was determined to end this cycle of fear that she had instilled in me. Taking a deep breath, I pushed the door slightly ajar, peering into the cafe to spot Sophie. She was chatting with a couple of old friends, her laughter like shards of glass pierced my composure. I stepped out, weaving through customers, each step leading me closer to the confrontation I had been building up to. The world seemed to fade away, the ambient noise becoming distant, and all that mattered now was the moment I'd taken control of. "Mira," Sophie's voice rang out, breaking through my internal struggle and yanking me from my daze. She raised a manicured hand in a wave I hadn't seen in years. "Oh my goodness, it's been ages. How are you?" A smile graced her lips like she had not a care in the world. The air shifted, tension tightening like a noose around my throat as memories flickered through my mind, her betrayal, the deception. I swallowed hard, the words I planned to say at the tip of my tongue. "I am fine," I said, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. "But we need to talk." Her eyes widened slightly, surprise glinting in them. "Talk about what?" She seemed genuinely curious, and there was a split second when her mask slipped, revealing the uncertainty that dwelled beneath. "I thought we were past all that." "Past all that?" I echoed incredulously, the anger bubbling up again. "You mean the lies, the way you undermined everything I worked for?" With each word, I felt the weight of the past lifting just a little. "You left me out in the cold, Sophie. You betrayed me, and I refused to let that go unaddressed any longer." The silence felt heavy between us, laughter echoing faintly in the background as people filled their mugs and chattered around us. Sophie's face flushed, the confidence faltering for a fleeting moment as my words hung in the air. "Myra, she stammered, searching for the right words as I took a step closer, determined to seize the chance I felt slipping through my fingers. "You need to own up to what you did. This is not just about us. I deserve to be heard." My heart pounded in my chest, a drumbeat of pent-up fury as I watched her mask slip further, revealing her vulnerability. She looked away for a moment, not knowing how to respond, and in that moment I felt a rush of satisfaction. Finally, she gathered herself, trying to reclaim her poise. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Myra. It was never about you." Her voice wavered ever so slightly, a note of panic lacing her tone, but I pushed through, unwilling to give her space. "Then what was it about, Sophie?" "You acted like a friend and then turned on me when it suited you," I accused, the words spilling out of me like water from a cracked vessel. "I need to understand why." "Because you were better than me." Her voice rose, frustration slicing through the air. "I was envious, okay? You had everything I wanted, and it felt easier to sabotage you than to admit it." The honesty in her admission felt like a punch to my gut, and I could see the cracks in her facade. "So you betrayed me because you could not handle your own insecurities," I challenged, feeling a dull ache settle in my chest. "You hurt me because you could not face your own reflection." I thought it would protect me. I thought if I made you look bad, maybe I would feel better, she stammered, the bravado draining away. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like she was admitting to something I had long understood but never spoken aloud. So you chose betrayal. I asked, my voice lowering so only she could hear. You thought that would heal you. Yes, I was wrong, she wiped her tears away. The walls she had built around herself were falling apart as the truth poured out, unraveling her. I realize how selfish it was, and I am sorry. The rawness of that moment pierced through my anger and confusion, leaving me feeling exposed. It was like I could see the little girl who had been too scared to accept her own weaknesses. For the first time, I understood the weight she had carried alongside my own hurt. Do you even realize what this did to me? I shot back, though my voice was softer now. It felt like the dam of emotions was breaking, sending both of us reeling. No, I did, she cried, desperation evident in her eyes. But I do now. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wouldn't blame you if you never did. I can't change the past, Myra, and I don't know how to fix this. I let out a shaky breath, emotions swirling around me like autumn leaves caught in a windstorm. Then begin by accepting the truth, don't run from it. As those final words settled in the atmosphere between us, I could see a flicker of understanding in her eyes. For the first time, what was left of our friendship felt like it could be salvaged if only we both could brave the storm of honesty together. Myra. She began, her voice softer than I had ever heard it, and the moment felt heavy with the potential for healing. And maybe, just maybe, that was what I had hoped for all along. Despite the haze of uncertainty still hanging between us, I began to realize that sometimes the confrontation isn't just about revenge. Sometimes it is about finding the strength to let go. The heavy rain pounded against my window, each drop a reminder of the storm brewing both inside and outside my heart. I sank deeper into the old, overstuffed armchair in my living room, the room dimly lit by a single lamp in the corner. Shadows flickered, twisting like the thoughts in my mind. It had been almost 3 weeks since I first tasted the bitterness of betrayal, a taste that clung to my tongue like the residue of stale coffee left on the counter. "Oi, Myra, why would you do this to me?" Derek's voice echoed in my ears, that sweet treachery hanging in the air like the musty scent of neglected spaces. I gripped the armchair, the fabric rough against my palms, grounding me as I replayed that moment over and over, his betrayal cutting deeper with each recollection. How could a person I chose to share my life with turn around and stab me in the back? I had discovered the truth about his affair not through confrontation or confession, but by stumbling upon an email on his phone sent to someone named Jessica. The words were raw and intimate, like knives scraping against my heart. Each sentence oozed with affection, and I can still remember the aching knot in my stomach as that cold reality sunk in. I glanced at the clock on the wall. It was nearly 8 in the evening, and I reached for my phone, its screen glowing resolutely in the familiar darkness. The last message I had received from him was just a single word: sorry. I scoffed at it now. That word had turned into something so meaningless in the weeks that followed. I imagined Jessica, the recipient of his longing. What did she have that I did not? I had been the one supporting him through thick and thin, while he had decided to squander my loyalty for a fleeting distraction. Just then my phone buzzed again. I picked it up and my heart jumped. It was Leela, my childhood friend. "Dinner tomorrow. We need to talk." I could almost hear her voice, warm and comforting, cutting through my dark cloud for just a moment. Leela always knew how to lighten my burdens, but this time my dissatisfaction clawed at me. "Sure," I replied quickly, my fingers tapping hesitantly. I could use some company. I dropped the phone back on the side table and stared into the distance. The rain was slowing down outside, but my thoughts were racing. My mind turned again to revenge, that tantalizing idea that had been building ever since I uncovered Derek's deceit. I wanted him to feel the pain he had inflicted upon me, not just for my own healing, but for him to understand the magnitude of his actions. A light bulb flickered above me, and suddenly a plan began to form in my mind. "You have to play smart, Myra," I whispered to myself, almost needing to urge myself forward. It was not enough to merely confront Derek and Jessica. I wanted them to be swallowed by their own guilt and embarrassment. The mental image of their faces when the truth was laid bare to countless friends sent a thrill down my spine. I could get creative, show them what betrayal looks like from the other side. The thought of executing my plan filled me with an electric excitement, the kind that I hadn't felt in weeks. With newfound resolve, I pulled out a notebook, my sanctuary, plucking it from the depths of the cluttered drawer. I opened it and began to scribble furiously, brainstorming how I could make their lives a living nightmare. The doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. "Leela," I murmured, questioning whether she'd come early. I opened the door, and the sudden rush of cold air chilled me. There she stood, shaking off rainwater like a wet puppy, her hair in wisps around her face. "Mira, I thought I'd find you wrapped in a blanket, crying over the remnants of your love life," she joked lightly, her eyes scanning the room as she stepped inside. I smiled faintly, not quite ready to share my inner turmoil. I began but trailed off, not quite ready to let her in on my darker connotations of revenge. "I was just thinking." Her eyes narrowed, and she placed a palm on my shoulder. "Thinking can be dangerous. You okay? You know I will always listen." I hesitated, but then a part of me wanted to test the waters. It's about Derek. I found something out and I just want to let it go, she suggested, the warmth in her voice almost laced with a gentle reprimand. No, I want more. There it was, the thread that broke free of my carefully held restraint. Ooh, she leaned in, curious, you've got that glint in your eyes. Are you plotting something? I could feel my heart race as I played out the scenarios in my head, imagining how she might react. I want to confront him, but not just in the usual way. I want him to realize what he lost, and I want it to sting. Leela raised an eyebrow, concerned but also intrigued. Spill it, Myra. What are you thinking? I took a deep breath, the excitement igniting within me. I'll make him see what betrayal looks like. I will use what I know, not just for me, but for the people around him to see the truth. What do you mean? She asked, her voice dropping to a whisper as if we were sharing a deep, dark secret. I want to expose him, I said, and not just to me, but to everyone. I want Derek to feel shame and regret, to know that cheating comes at a price. This Jessica, is that her name? That Jessica can have him, but let the world see him for what he really is. Her eyes widened with excitement, and I could see the wheels turning inside her head. And how do you plan on doing that? I know Derek has a big launch coming up next week for his new project. If I could gather some incriminating evidence and leak it to his business partners, I felt a wicked grin spreading across my face as confidence swelled within me. They would think twice about trusting him ever again. Leela bit her lip, almost giddy with mischief. You really think you can pull this off? Of course I can, I replied, feeling stronger. I just need to play my cards right. I can use his own arrogance against him. Everyone in his circle sees him as a golden boy, and I want to shatter that illusion. She nodded, biting down a smile. This is diabolical, and I love it. You finally have a plan. I can be your eyes and ears if you need me. Yes, I said, the excitement rising in me like a fizzy soda bottle about to pop. We make sure it gets into the right hands. As we strategized, I felt a part of me that had gone dormant awakening again. The heaviness in my chest started melting away, replaced by a thrill akin to the electric crackle before a storm. I could see the excitement in Leela's eyes as she jotted down notes, feeding off my energy. Time slipped by as we plotted, our laughter echoing through the dimly lit room as I looked at my best friend, my ally. I felt more alive than I had in weeks. This was not just about revenge, it was about taking back my power. I was no longer the victim, I was the architect of my destiny. In those moments, I realized as the rain slowed outside that the dark clouds in my life could shift into something more. I stood, empowered and determined. Revenge was not just a dish served cold. It was a banquet awaited. The air crackled with an energy that felt both foreign and familiar as I stood alone on the roof of the old Maplewood warehouse, the wind biting through my jacket like crisp winter air. Darkness enveloped the night, yet the dull glow of distant streetlights bled into the shadows, their pale light glinting off the edges of shattered glass and rusted metal. Each breath I took felt heavy with anticipation, every beat of my heart a countdown to that moment when everything would change. Clenching my fists, I could feel the rough texture of the brick wall beneath my fingertips, the smell of damp concrete layered with a musty scent of decay wafting around me, a reminder of the history that soaked the ground I stood upon. This wasn't just an old warehouse, it was a graveyard of my past. A place where dreams and promises had been buried, left to rot like the graffiti splattered across the walls. I could still hear her voice echoing in my ears, taunting me, sweet and sickeningly familiar. Mira, you're way too sensitive, Jenna would say, her laugh high and lilting, a sound that used to fill me with warmth but now made my stomach churn. It's just a harmless joke, harmless, you called me a loser in front of everyone. I could hear my voice from somewhere far away, filled with that familiar fire, but it felt distant now, like it belonged to someone else. Here in the chill of the night, I was calm, composed, ready to end this. The fist of grief that had tightened around my heart for the past year was finally loosening its grip, and then there she was. Jenna strutted into view, the beam from her cell phone illuminating her perfect features as if she were the star of a movie. I fought the urge to scream, to run down and confront her irrationally, but this was my moment of revenge, planned meticulously over countless sleepless nights. Come on, Myra, time to make a scene, I muttered under my breath, rehearsing the words that had danced through my mind for far too long. I was already poised to step forward when she raised her head, scanning the arena of my trap under the moonlight. Hello, is anyone up there? Her voice floated toward me, laced with curiosity, the bravado in her tone still so intoxicating, still so misguided. It was hard to believe I had once idolized this girl. I had shared my secrets with her, trusted her with my dreams. She had turned them into fodder for her own twisted amusement. That night at the party, the way she had laughed as she told everyone about my ambition to become a writer, it had cut deeper than any blade. I remembered it vividly, the flicker of cruel delight in her eyes as she carved through me with her words. Just a couple of friends having a good time, she had said, filling the room with her words, leaving me small and insignificant. But tonight the tables had turned. I took a deep breath, letting the chill of the air fill my lungs. It was now or never. Jenna, I shouted, my voice echoing off the walls with a sudden force that startled even me. She stopped, her body tensing. Myra, is that you? The phone's beam wobbled as she turned it toward the roof, and I came into the light standing tall, unwavering. I thought I might find you here, alone with your choices, I said, letting a smirk play at the corners of my lips, trying to match her confidence. I wanted to see her squirm. Mira, this is totally not cool. I did not expect to see you, she stammered, attempting to regain control of the situation. What do you want? The nonchalance she had perfected unraveled under the weight of her surprise. I want the truth, Jenna. I want you to understand what you've done, what you've taken from me. What are you talking about? The way she narrowed her eyes told me she was already calculating her escape, ready to brush me off as nothing more than an annoyance. Do you remember that night at Jake's party? I continued, my heart pounding louder with every word. You told everyone I was a joke. You laughed at me. Do you think I forgot? Oh, come on, that was forever ago. I was just trying to be funny. It doesn't mean anything. She tried to wave it away with a flick of her wrist, and I could almost hear the desperate edge in her voice, trying too hard to project confidence. Doesn't mean anything, I laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the walls. That one moment turned my life upside down. You turned me invisible, Jenna. I was the girl no one remembered, and you took joy in it. Her expression faltered, and for just a moment I could see the mask slip. I didn't mean to hurt you, she finally stuttered, her bravado leaking away like air from a deflated balloon. I thought we were friends. Friends, you never were a friend. The deep hurt in my chest flooded through my words. Do you know what it is to be laughed at, to be the punchline, to realize the people you trust will use you to elevate their own status? Myra, please, no more excuses, I shouted, cutting her off. The power of my anger coursed through me like electricity, and it was intoxicating. Tonight you're going to face the consequences of your actions, Jenna. What are you talking about? Fear crept into her voice, and I delighted in it. The realization of what I'd planned hit her, and I could see her heart race, her eyes darting around as she searched for a way out. You wouldn't do anything to me, she said, the false bravado falling away entirely. You still don't get it, do you? I took a step closer, and the shadows flickered around us. This is not about revenge for the past anymore. This is about me taking back my power. You think you can just walk away unscathed because it was just a joke? Well, jokes always have punchlines, Jenna. I could see her trembling, and I reveled in the change from the confident girl I once knew to the frightened person she was now becoming. What do you want me to do? She pleaded, desperation seeping into her voice. I'll apologize. Apologies don't cut it anymore, I interrupted, my voice cold. I want you to feel what it's like to be the one who is lost. A stillness enveloped us, the wind whistling in the distance, but it was what came next that would cement my plans. The door behind her creaked open, the familiar forms of the people who had once stood by her flowing out to the rooftop, and I smirked at the glinting eyes of total confusion etched on their faces. Supporters, I addressed them with disdain. Tell me, do you think it is funny to turn on your friends? Their expressions twisted into looks of disbelief. Myra, what is going on? One voice called out, yet they were all silent when they saw Jenna standing there, vulnerable in the spotlight. Maybe now you will understand the impact of your actions, I said, turning my gaze back on Jenna. We all have laughter in our lives, but sometimes it is too painful to be the one laughing. What are you going to do? She asked again, sounding smaller than I had ever heard her before. Look around you, Jenna, I said, sweeping my arm wide, allowing the rooftop to become a stage. You are the star of this show now, and I want you to play the role you love so much. You will stand here in front of everyone you think are your friends, and you will own your mistakes. As the wind picked up, twirling leaves around our feet, I could almost taste the victory, as sweet as it was bitter. It might not change the past, but standing there, I felt freer than I had in years. I was no longer the girl shadowed by her laughter. Instead, I was emerging, a phoenix rising from the ashes of my own shame. Myra, please, Jenna's voice wobbled, a plea masked in panic. This is where your humble pie gets served, I said, feeling a scathing satisfaction wash over me. You will learn the meaning of accountability, even if no one will ever forgive you. You will stand in front of the people you used to fool, and you will explain your truth. Mira, don't, I can change, I am not that person anymore. But it was too late, the truth was unfurling, and I intended to make sure it was known. As I stepped closer to her, the lights of the city shimmering in the distance, this was not just about revenge anymore. This was my comeback. The stage was set between us, and the night was still young. Let them see who you really are, I whispered, the night air wrapping around my words like silk, and as my heart raced, I beckoned the storm to roll in, knowing that I was finally free.